So I watched Andor Season 2 early, and to describe it in one word, it's intense. Now right away you're probably asking yourself, is the show good? Is it worth me sitting down and watching it? And you're also probably wondering how Season 2 compares to Season 1. Well, in this video I'm going to answer all of that with my honest thoughts while keeping it 100% spoiler free, so you don't need to worry about spoilers here. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into it. So I had the chance to already watch the entire Season 2 of Andor from episode 1 all the way until episode 12, which is the whole season. However, the thing I'll say right away though is, Season 2 is nothing like Season 1. In my opinion, Season 1 was phenomenal. It showed us a side to Star Wars we've never seen before. It was dark, gritty, and you might agree with me here, but I think it was one of the best standalone Star Wars seasons that we've seen. From the prison scene to the Albany raid and the emotional connections you develop with all these new characters that you've never even seen before. It was phenomenal, and I truly enjoyed it. But now let's talk about Season 2. Season 2 on the other hand, well, it takes what they did in Season 1 and it goes beyond another level. Season 2 of Andor is something you can't even imagine, and in my opinion, a level of writing that we've never witnessed in a TV series before. I personally didn't believe they could top off what they did in the first season, but they did, and they did it in an extraordinary, beautiful yet dark fashion. Usually I'm skeptical when it comes to Season 2s of shows, because that's where a lot of series start to decline, and you always ask yourself going in, can they keep the same magic as the first season? Well, in the case of Andor, they didn't do just that, but they did it in an even better way. Let me explain. Like I mentioned, I thought Season 1 was fantastic, but I will definitely say the first 3 episodes of that season felt slightly slower at first. It took me a while to get invested, but once it started picking up, each episode got better and better. As for Season 2 though, that's the complete opposite. Straight from the start, you're already so invested mainly because you know these characters already. You're familiar with them, you've seen their struggles and what they had to go through, but most of all, you want to be along with them on this journey. To me, that's what makes Season 2 so great. But what's crazy is that after watching it, it's not just Cassian Andor you become invested into. You become so invested into other characters like Bix, Mon Mothma, Dedra, and so many characters that we met from Season 1 that are now even more expanded on in Season 2. After watching this season, I can honestly say adding Krennic to the show was the perfect decision. It's interesting because you never know how it'll work when an existing character enters a new show or a movie for the first time. Sometimes it works, while other times people might think it just feels like fan service. However, without sharing much details, I can fully say that adding director Krennic to this season was one of the best decisions they could have made. Just like Cassian, Mon Mothma, and other characters we know, it makes the journey to Rogue One even better. If you haven't seen it, in a recent interview, actor Diego Luna said that after you watch Andor Season 2, you'll see Rogue One completely differently, and that you'll have so much more information you never had before. For me, I can honestly say he's right. I haven't rewatched Rogue One after watching Season 2 yet, but it already answers so many questions of things like, how did this character get here? Or how did they meet? And even certain lines from the film that have deeper meanings now, and that's all because of this season. It makes you see Rogue One in a whole new way, and not just that movie, but also other films and shows like A New Hope and even Star Wars Rebels. Incorporating characters that we've seen before like Saw Gerrera and Krennic was just a genius move by them, and like I said, none of these character appearances felt forced. It felt right, it felt natural, and these additions made so much sense to the story and why they need to be present there. However, not only do they expand on characters and storylines, but I think they really nailed what makes Star Wars, Star Wars. You might relate to this, but when I watch Star Wars, I usually feel a roller coaster of different emotions, even after seeing the movies hundreds of times. There's scenes that make you laugh, scenes that make you cry, and scenes that make you have empathy for the hero or the villain. Well, that's exactly what Andor does, just in a different fashion. We all know that Andor is a much more mature show than anything we've seen before, but they still deliver on what makes Star Wars so magical. Season 2 really delivers on giving you a wave of different emotions from the start all the way until the finish of the show, but also while keeping that same dark theme that it had in Season 1. Without getting into too much detail, the thing that shocked me the most was how terrifying the Empire is in this season. I feel like Season 1 did a great job of showing us a new side to the Empire from what we've ever seen before in the films, like expanding on the ISB and really getting a deep dive into what happens within the walls of the Empire. Well, guess what? Season 2 expands on that even more. In the original films, at times we kind of see stormtroopers as silly, but for the first time ever, it's like you experience genuine fear when seeing troopers in white armor. I didn't even personally think that was possible, but as the show went on, it made me see so many things differently, and I think that's something a lot of Star Wars fans will appreciate when watching the season. On top of it, I think fans will also appreciate how much this show honors the lore. Just throwing it out there, if you're a Legends fan, well, you'll be a very happy person after this season. Without getting into too much detail, there were some really cool nods and references to Legends content that really makes the viewing experience so much fun, all while honoring the canon lore. Now, one thing I really want to touch on that stood out to me from this season was that a lot of it was shot on actual film locations. If you don't know, a lot of recent Star Wars projects were filmed with what was called the volume. Basically what it is a huge virtual set that creates realistic backgrounds instead of just a traditional green screen. The Mandalorian used it, Kenobi used it, and a few other shows as well. Now, I personally love the volume, and I think it works great for a lot of the series, but there's just something so unique about using real film locations. At least for me, it's such a nostalgic feeling, especially when watching movies like the original trilogy, which were mostly all real sets, you know? And that's just what I love about Andor Season 2. Like Season 1, they used real film locations for a lot of it, and the additions they made on top of it are just jaw-dropping. Expanding on that, I think another thing you'll be pleased with is the music and costume designs in this show. We can all agree that music plays such a huge role in Star Wars, and just like honoring the lore, I think Andor focused strongly on that area and really went all out in that field. The music and the costumes were just phenomenal, and I can honestly say I was impressed more and more with both of these categories as the season went on. Now, aside from the story itself, there is something I do want to touch on: the release schedule. A lot of fans were upset about this because it definitely has a release schedule that we haven't really seen before in Star Wars, and this is what I mean. If you look at the schedule here, you'll see that there's 3 episodes per week on April 22nd, April 29th, May 6th, and May 13th. Now, this is very different from the usual format we get when it's usually 1 episode per week over the course of 8 weeks or so. Unlike Netflix, who usually drops seasons all in one go, Disney Plus has usually done the week-by-week format, which really provides a lot of cool hype over time. It prevents fans from finishing it all in one day, and on top of it, you get to be excited for the next week's episode for almost 2 months straight. Not only that, but this week-by-week format can also allow all of us to have fun theories over time, like, ooh, what's gonna happen next week and the week after that, you know? But now with Andor Season 2's new format, fans are pretty worried because it might be too short, which I understand, but hear me out. After watching the season, I believe this new format was the best thing they could have done, and here's why. If you haven't heard, between each 3 episodes, there's a time jump of 1 year. So for example, episodes 4 to 6 take place 1 year after episodes 1 to 3. Then episodes 7 to 9 take place 1 year after 4 to 6. You kinda get my point, right? Anyways, the way they set these episodes up is that you're essentially watching a new Star Wars movie every week for a month straight. Now, while I love the 1 episode per week format, sometimes I forget key details over time and have to occasionally do my own little recaps, so luckily, Andor prevents that. You're basically getting a new Star Wars movie every week, and I say this in full transparency, I didn't feel once throughout the whole season that there was a single filler episode. Every episode felt intense, engaging, action-packed, and truly had me on the edge of my seat constantly. Usually with long seasons, there tend to be a lot of filler, but Andor did not disappoint in that field, even with their long runtimes. As for the runtimes themselves, it was very similar to Season 1. To give you an idea, you're looking at least 40 minutes per episode, with some even being close to an hour long, and I think that's what fans have been really itching for. For me, I want fleshed out stories and enough time to develop emotional connections to these characters, and I truly think that the 12 episode format with these long runtimes helps so much towards that. I will recommend one thing though. Going into this season, you'll definitely need a refresh on what happened in Season 1. There were a lot of character motives and names that I personally forgot from the first season, so what I actually did was watch the Season 1 recap that they have on Disney Plus. It's about 14 minutes long, but it's definitely worth the watch rather than having to go through close to 12 hours worth of the first season all over again. The recap they have there actually helped a lot, and I hope they do that for future shows like when Ahsoka Season 2 comes out, even if they remove it afterwards. I just think things like that helps fans have a better viewing experience, and it makes them more motivated to watch the second season of anything really. So I'm not going to give Andor an overall rating out of 10 since I really don't do that on this channel, but I will say is that out of all the Star Wars projects released, this and The Mandalorian Season 2 have been my favorite standalone seasons. I think the 2 shows are very different in many ways, as from what we saw in Season 1, Andor doesn't really focus on Force users, lightsabers, or any of that. But with that said, I think that it was needed in the Star Wars universe, and it's important that we have a show like this that's so unique and different. I think we needed to see that side of the Empire, that side of the growing rebellion, and how it all came together, you know? One of my favorite parts of Star Wars are lightsaber duels, but I also think it's so nice to appreciate other aspects of the universe that are different in their own respective ways. Andor isn't anything like we've seen before, and Season 2 was truly mind-blowing. Personally, I'm sad that it's come to an end and that this was the final season, because as I've said countless times in this video, this season was nothing like I've ever experienced before as a viewer. Now, it makes sense why the story has to end, considering that we all know what happens to Cassian in Rogue One eventually. But I hope Lucasfilm makes more projects like this in the future. It was magical, it was a beautiful story, it was emotionally captivating, and in my opinion, it was a masterpiece. But anyways, those are my thoughts. As you can see, I personally loved it, and I hope you will too when it comes out in just a few days. Let me know your thoughts below on what you're most excited about with the show. Or if you're watching this video later and have already seen it, let me know what you've enjoyed about it so far. I'd love to know. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always.